who the Republican presidential nominee is come this November, I've got a surefire way for him to beat Hillary Clinton, guaran-damn-teed. My name is Howard Riell, and this is Real Truth. You're listening to the American Freedom Network, streaming live around the world at AmericanNewsNet.com and on Facebook and YouTube and Tumblr and in the book, Real Truth, Stay Angry. Of course, as always, broadcasting out across the Colorado Front Range on KHNC, Johnstown, Colorado, 1360 AM, The Lion. Our call-in number, 877-254-7524. My friends, if you're listening on the radio, then you can't see what I'm holding in front of me. My video viewers can. So when the show is over, I want you to go on my Facebook page, Real Truth Radio, or go on YouTube or Tumblr and see it for yourself. I'm holding up before the camera a book by Roger Stone called The Clintons' War on Women. And I want you to get this book. I want you to read this book. I want you to share and discuss this book, because this book holds the key. I said that I have a way for whatever Republican nominee there is in November to beat Hillary Clinton. This book is it. I'm in the middle of reading it, and I want to tell you, there I am. I want to tell you, it portrays the Clintons for exactly what they are: low-down scum. The presidential nominee for the Republicans merely has to get his hands on several 100,000, several million copies of this book. Why not make Roger Stone a best-selling author? Get copies of this book, distribute them free to voters, distribute them in Republican and Democrat strongholds, and say to them, if you want to vote for Hillary, this is the kind of horrifying train wreck that you're voting for. If the Republican nominee will do that, say if he's, I don't know, a billionaire businessman with money to spend, and he wants to let people know exactly who and what Hillary Clinton is and what the Clintons are, this book will tell you. In fact, because I am your friend and your humble host, I'm going to read you just the first paragraph. Just the first paragraph of this book. Here it is. Listen to this. I'm quoting. Most people think they know the worst about Bill and Hillary Clinton. They're wrong. As someone who's worked on the inside of U.S. politics at the highest level, I've noticed that their personal lives are more stunning, lurid, and wildly dysfunctional than even their harshest critics could ever imagine. This book doesn't focus on Monica Lewinsky, Whitewater, or the Clinton pardons. Instead, it's about the many, many ways in which the Clintons have been tied to sexual abuse, cover-ups, strong-arm tactics, drugs, lies, and the intimidation of victims. As Bill and Hillary have climbed to power, the people left in their wake have been silenced until now. My friends, you go to Amazon.com, you will find a link to this book. Buy it. Go to a library, you might find a copy. Get it. Go to my Facebook page, Real Truth Radio. You'll find links there. You also will find Roger Stone everywhere on YouTube talking about this book and others that he's written. And I'm here to tell you, no one who reads this book and is of good conscience would ever dream of voting for Hillary Clinton for president. And so this is my tip of the day. Get this book, read it, discuss it, share it, and do it before November. Now on with the show. Item from Printly.com. Heidi Cruz and Ted Cruz laughed as they watched a pro-Cruz super PAC advertisement meant to disparage Melania Trump for being a supermodel, and Trump fired back. The revised tweet still raises more questions than it answers, though. Given all the, quote, beans that have already been spilled on Heidi Cruz, for example, she hated Iowa, she secretly funded Ted's Senate campaign, and she's Anna Gasteyer. And the new tweet's linguistic ambiguity, it's possible that Trump's threat is not figurative, but literal. In which case, we can only say whatever you're into, man, as long as she's into it too. But, setting that possibility aside, we'll take the bait. What figurative beans might Donald Trump have on Senator Ted Cruz's wife, Heidi Cruz, currently on leave from her job as a managing director in Goldman Sachs' Houston office? Now, here are the beans. A police report was revealed that cops once found the wife of Republican presidential candidate Ted Cruz with her head in hands beside the Texas Expressway and was, quote, a danger to herself. According to the 2005 report, which DailyMail.com highlighted in June, Heidi Cruz, 43, had walked from her home after dinner on August 22nd. She then sat down beside North Mopac and Enfield in Austin at around 10 p.m. While Mrs. Cruz has not spoken out publicly about the incident, an advisor to her senator husband said she experienced, quote, a brief bout of depression, unquote, 10 years ago in response to questions about the police report. A concerned passerby had made the call after spotting a woman in a pink shirt just, quote, sitting in the area with her head in her hands, unquote. Heidi's ties with the North American Union. Senator Ted Cruz met his wife Heidi while working on the George W. Bush presidential campaign of 2000. Heidi Cruz, excuse me, as you can see, my cold's not done yet. Heidi Cruz is currently head of the Southwest region in the investment management division of Goldman Sachs and Company, and previously worked in the White House for Condoleezza Rice and in New York as an investment banker for J.P. Morgan. Wikipedia lists Heidi Nelson Cruz as, quote, an investment banker and a historical member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Heidi Cruz was a member of the CFR-sponsored Independent Task Force on the Future of North America, which was launched in October 2004. The task force advocates a greater economic and social integration between Canada, Mexico, and the United States as a North American region. Comprised of a group of prominent business, political, and academic leaders from the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, the task force was organized and sponsored by the Council on Foreign Relations, the Canadian Council of Chief Executives, and the Mexican Council on Foreign Relations. It was co-chaired by former Canadian Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance John Manley, former Vice Minister of Mexico Pedro Aspe, and former Governor of Massachusetts and Assistant U.S. Attorney General William F. Weld. Its main publication is the 70-page Task Force Report number 53, entitled Building a North American Community from May 2005. Heidi Cruz is listed as a member of the task force and is described as, quote, an energy investment banker with Merrill Lynch in Houston, Texas, unquote, who, quote, served in the Bush White House under Dr. Condoleezza Rice as the economic director for the Western Hemisphere at the National Security Council. As the director, okay, my friends, I won't belabor the issue. Get the book, check on YouTube under Heidi Cruz, Council on Foreign Relations. You'll be surprised what you find. It's real truth. We'll be right back. That's no surprise.
We all know that our government is out of control. What are the points of people?
My friends, I'm not kidding. Get this book, because it is shocking and appalling and frightening reading, not just the horrible things that happen in it, but the people who are connected to those horrible things, and the fact that by and large they get away with those horrible things. That's the scariest part. Because the justice system doesn't work when you're dealing with elites. Get this book, read it, share it, discuss it, and then think about whether or not you want to vote for Hillary Clinton. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Ruin your life or take the lives of others. You are responsible for your own safety as well as the safety of those around you. This message from Rehabilitation and Nursing Center of the Rockies. For information on their services, call 970-484-7981.
Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits, whether they are of God, because many false prophets have gone into the world. By this you will know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Yeshua, Jesus, has come in the flesh is of God, and every spirit that does not confess that Yeshua, Jesus, has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is the spirit of Antichrist, which you have already heard was coming and is now already in the world. 1 John 4:1.
Article 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons or things to be seized.
welcome back to Real Truth. Welcome back to Real Truth. Howard Riell here. You know, my cold's not completely gone, but I sound a lot better and I feel a lot better. Speaking of Heidi Cruz, yes, Goldman Sachs, Council on Foreign Relations, North American Union, she is part of the establishment. So is her husband. Don't believe this outsider crap. They are part of the hum, the machine. I found a really good video about Heidi Cruz. This comes from Art Thompson, who's the CEO of the John Birch Society. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Well, welcome again this week to an analysis behind the news. I'm going to make a lot of you mad at me. In fact, I'll bet you that, I guarantee that some of you will start swearing at me and probably turn this video off. But I don't want you to do that. I want you to look at what I have to say, because I'm getting a little bit tired of the hypocrisy in the presidential campaign. And I'm going to be getting into also the North American Union. And all this controversy in the last week or so has been over the wives of the two leading contenders for the Republican nomination. That it's okay if you attack one candidate's wife, but it's not okay if you attack the other candidate's wife. So, you know, I find these things a bit hypocritical, particularly because I find that the information is not getting out into the public relative to the North American Union aspects of Heidi Cruz. You know, Heidi Cruz, and this is, by the way, the Council on Foreign Relations, I don't want to call it Bible, but it is the outline of the proposal for the North American Union. And they called it Building a North American Community. And it's issued by the Council on Foreign Relations. And at the beginning of this, it specifically shows who the members are of the task force put together by the Council on Foreign Relations that put this report together. The recommendations for a North American Union to merge the United States, Canada, and Mexico into a single entity, a single country, with only one border, and that was around all the three countries with no border between the United States and Canada or United States and Mexico. If you think we have a problem now with migration, it would become even worse with no borders at all. And yet these were the recommendations out of this committee of the Council on Foreign Relations, which lists Heidi Cruz as one of those task force members. And it says here, it's got an asterisk back by her name, and the asterisk says this: the individual has endorsed the report and submitted an additional or dissenting view. So you go back to the dissenting view of Heidi Cruz, and this is what she says: I support the task force report and its recommendations aimed at building a safer and more prosperous North America. And then she goes on and says that she is just concerned that we maintain the ability of these banks to be able to run the banking regulations and that sort of thing, instead of making it a state thing. Well, that's no surprise, because at the same time, Heidi Cruz had Morgan connections, and then subsequently went on and became part of the Goldman Sachs banking empire. And incidentally, her husband got a very sweetheart deal from Goldman Sachs for his campaign that he just forgot to mention to anybody in his public disclosure. Now, Heidi has been a member of the Council on Foreign Relations for many years. I've got the various years here that she's been a member. She's listed for 5 years in here. And then suddenly, when Cruz starts to get politically active, her membership disappears. She is no longer a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. And so here we have a woman who is involved in a New World Order organization, involved in not just that organization, but working with that organization to help bring about a North American Union. And you don't see this in her Wikipedia online. It's never mentioned that she was involved in these things. But but it does mention that she worked for Condoleezza Rice and that sort of thing in the Bush administration. Of course, Condoleezza Rice is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and a trilateralist. And so these people that want to build a new world order, they sometimes don't like the public to know what they're doing. And so you don't see this sort of thing coming out. And a lot of times, even if it did come out, the average citizen wouldn't understand what's being exposed. Most of you who watch these videos each week understand these things. And yet this sort of information is not getting out there. The thing about it that bothers me as well is that the North American Union and other organizational things like the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the Transatlantic Partnership, and that sort of thing, are not really involved with trade. These things are being sold as building better trade relationships. That was how the NAFTA was sold. That's how all of these agreements are sold. Even the North American Union. Oh, don't pay any attention to these crazies saying that this is going to form a new country and we're going to lose our independence. This is only about trade. Just concentrate on that. Don't pay attention to anything else. And that's the mantra that they use for all of these things. And so when a person comes out during a debate and says, for instance, I have never supported the TPP, technically that's true. But I have a letter that was signed by Cruz that says that this, I hope the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership produce agreements that reduce government-created barriers to trade, enabling increased prosperity for all involved. So, we see him say that in the way of this being a trade deal. But underlying it all, and this is the dangerous part, underlying it all is the idea of us losing our independence to a larger international entity. And it creates new boards and so on and so forth. The TPP, for instance, only 5 chapters basically cover trade. It's got 29 chapters or more. And so it builds these new foreign courts and regulatory agencies and that sort of thing. But that is never mentioned. And so he hopes that this sort of thing will lead to better trade. Well, that's not the issue in our mind. It's not trade. We're all for free trade. But not for these agreements that handcuff us and create the condition where we will lose control over our own economy to an entity that is to come with this vote in Congress. So we're very worried about it. So these sorts of things bother me, that we're not supposed to look at the wives of these candidates. And yet the wife of this particular candidate has a history of working with Morgan Bank, with Goldman Sachs Bank, and not just simply as a clerk or a teller. I'm talking about in management, and been placed on a leave of absence for the campaign. And we'll go right back into the Goldman Sachs if, I'm assuming, he loses the race for president. If she becomes the first lady, I wouldn't expect that she'd go back to these banks. But it has that connection. There's a connection with these New World Order individuals. But let's not look at the wife. There's a connection with the Council on Foreign Relations. There's a connection with the North American Union. But let's not look at these wives. We don't want to look at these wives because they don't want us to understand some of the things that are going on behind the scenes relative to all of this. Now, this information came out amongst many knowledgeable individuals. And he was asked about this publicly. What about your wife being CFR? Well, she's quit the CFR, and they're a den of vipers. Well, it's funny. Since he said that this is a den of vipers, he's filled his foreign policy staff, his advisory staff for the campaign, with people from this den of vipers. A lot of them. And I'm not talking about just some underlying individuals within the CFR. I'm talking about leaders within the CFR. So these are questions that need to be answered when we go to the polls. We need to ask our candidates about them before we even go to the polls. We're not getting good answers, ladies and gentlemen. We need those answers. Until next week, I'll see you then. Well, maybe you'll be back.
My friends, truth is where you find it. And the truth is, the fact is, Heidi Cruz has been a managing director of Goldman Sachs, one of the too big to fail bankster banks. She's part of the Council on Foreign Relations, which is a group of elites that want to control us. She and her husband, Ted Cruz, were both started out in the Bush campaign, the Bush crime family. That's also the title of a book. And that means that they are the hum. They belong to the machine. And if they try and push themselves as outsiders, don't believe it. It's fake. They are the machine. And the reason Donald Trump has been so popular is that he's not the machine. And so the choice of whom to support becomes pretty clear. Item from the Examiner. Washington Times columnist Drew Johnson took to Twitter soon after the National Enquirer story broke about Ted Cruz being accused of having at least 5 mistresses. The tweet below went mega viral in a very short period of time. After the Washington Times quickly disassociated from him for saying a scandal may be true, Johnson seemed to still be a class act. He tweeted that he respected them and had enjoyed working with them. He did not understand, though, why they would do this via Twitter instead of a phone call or even an email. However, now there are attempts to smear and discredit him, claiming they have not had a relationship with him in over a year, which he soon replied to, providing proof of being paid just last month. Drew Johnson had always described himself as a government waste expert, watchdog, and defender of liberty. With the sudden turn of events in his life, Johnson has just announced he'll be launching his own website focused on, quote, exposing hypocrisy, abuse of power, and bad behavior by politicians and others with power, unquote. He'll be bringing all his experience and talents to his new platform soon. Good for him. And we'll be following the future endeavor, unquote. Item. This comes from the American Mirror. It's a statement by Bill Clinton's former lover, Sally Miller, and I quote, even having a child was a political calculation for Hillary Clinton, one of Bill Clinton's former lovers says, and it's those types of actions that she believes should give every woman pause before making Hillary the first female president. Miller, who had a 3-month affair with then-Governor Bill Clinton in 1983, recently shared with the American Mirror some of the intimate secrets Bill told her, including that even having a child was a political calculation for the current Democratic frontrunner for president. Quote, she had several abortions before she had Chelsea, and it was only because Bill convinced her if they were ever going to move up in politics, they had to have a child because that's what the political analysts had said, Miller says. Quote, they've got to see her as a human. They've got to see her, I think in society, they always say if you're a mother, you can't be half bad. There has to be some love or gentleness or compassion within you to birth a child, unquote. But that's not true. There's some pretty bad mothers. I had one, Miller says. She said her mother had abused her for years. Referring to Clinton again, Miller tells the American Mirror, quote, she is a Gloria Steinem kind of feminist. If you've ever seen a picture or heard of Gloria Steinem, just a cold, conniving bitch. That's just it. And they don't care about anyone but themselves. That's what most feminists are all about. It's all about themselves, according to Miller. Quote, and most of them don't link men, incidentally. Don't like men. They only use men for income and appearance. Hillary could never have made it to Washington, D.C. without Bill. He was the song and dance routine. He's the one that played the sax, and he could laugh and joke and talk, and Hillary can't do that. She can't put on her black nightie and run around, and she can't play the sax, Miller says, referring to her previous claim that during their trysts, Bill Clinton would wear Miller's nightie and play his instrument. My friends, we'll be back with more Real Truth.
We all know that our government is out of control. What are the points of people in it? How can we, the people, bring it back to the people's servants, not the people's masters? Forum and the Freedom Rider says officials in government must be made accountable for their actions. AccountabilityRevolution.com is the place to go to learn how you can actually make that happen. Become their judges, not their slaves. AccountabilityRevolution.com. Rehabilitation and Nursing Center of the Rockies reminds everyone the chance of involvement in an auto accident rises dramatically with the consumption of alcohol or use of drugs. Please think before you drive. Don't let drugs or alcohol ruin your life or take the lives of others. You are responsible for your own safety as well as the safety of those around you. This message from Rehabilitation and Nursing Center of the Rockies. For information on their services, call 970-484-7981. Great Plains Power has been providing reliable electrical power systems in the Rocky Mountain area since 1992. Our systems rely on the sun to help make you self-reliant for your power needs. Solar energy can be scaled to fit any situation, from complete power independence to backup power for the short term. Our expertise focuses on standalone power, but we have extensive experience with utility interactive systems as well. Custom-tailored capabilities as modest emergency lighting all the way to commercial-scale power. Great Plains Power is a full-service company. We service everything we sell. We provide and design turnkey packages, custom-designed system, and parts for do-it-yourself. With more than 20 years of specialized experience at your disposal, let us know what your power concerns or goals are. Reach us by phone or the internet. Call 303-239-9963. That's 303-239-9963. Or go to GreatPlainsSolar.com. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque or reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Article 1, Section 10. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. John bore witness of him and cried out, saying, This was he of whom I said, He who comes after me is preferred before me, for he was before me. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 14 and 15.
All right, guys, I am back. In the last 24 hours, Donald Trump was on TV on Fox News talking about his policy being that of America first. He said some interesting things. Let's listen. Donald Trump on Fox News.
Riell Donald Trump, he is on the phone with us. Good morning to you, Mr. Trump.
Good morning.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That's very exciting.
How did it happen? What time?
How did it happen?
I know how it happened. Don't answer that.
We won't get into the details, but it was about probably 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon, and it was very exciting. On Easter, so we have an Easter baby, which is beautiful.
Well, that's fantastic, and it looks like Ivanka's doing great. So probably for the moment, Theodore is your favorite grandchild. We're going to get to the controversy revolving around that in just a moment.
Okay.
Let's talk about what happened over the weekend, over last week in the Brussels attacks. Ray Kelly is one of the people who says this is the wake-up call for Belgium and for Europe. They never got it together like we did after 2001. Do you agree?
Well, Ray Kelly's a friend of mine. I know him very well, and he's 100% right. And I said about Brussels, if you remember, the New York Times criticized me very, very viciously when I said Brussels is a hellhole, it's waiting to explode, and they ended up doing big articles on it, and then all of a sudden everybody's saying I was right. Brussels is really in deep trouble. They don't know what's going on, and it's... Look, they have people, they never had anything like this. They have people, they have absolutely no control over themselves, and it's a real problem. It was a real problem.
Yeah, Mr. Trump, they've got clashes on the streets today because the open borders policies of the elites have been have a very different effect on the people. Yet our president, President Obama, in his weekly address over the weekend, declared that we should be open to more refugees as an example of what America represents. We're going to play what he had to say and have you react.
Okay.
As we move forward in this fight, we have to wield another weapon alongside our airstrikes, our military, our counterterrorism work, and our
probably say you have a distorted view of Islam or radical Islam. What do you say to what he had to say?
I'll tell you what I say. I can't even believe that he's saying it. It's inconceivable that he's saying it. Open borders, everything he said there is absolutely, you would almost say it's disgraceful. You can't even imagine that a man could make those statements, especially a president of this country. We need protection. We need borders. We need, on the southern border, we need the wall, and the wall's going to get built, and Mexico's going to pay for the wall, by the way, just in case anybody has any questions. And it is disgraceful that he could say this, and especially when he talks about coming in from the Middle East, frankly, even more so, where they're undocumented. We have no idea where they come from. We have no idea who they are. And you saw what, a few months ago in California, you saw what two radicalized young people could do. The two people got married, killed their co-workers. It is just insane what this man is saying.
You know, what's interesting is John Kerry was all over the networks over the weekend. He was saying that the Republican candidates, including you, are the embarrassment. Let's listen to this and get your reaction.
Every leader I meet, they ask about what is happening in America. They cannot believe it. I think it is fair to say that they're shocked. They don't know where it's taking the United States of America. It upsets people's sense of equilibrium about our steadiness, about our reliability. And to some degree, I must say to you, some of the questions, the way they're posed to me, it's clear to me that what's happening is an embarrassment to our country. Your reaction?
Well, I'm shocked by him. And I'm shocked that he would sign a deal like the Iran deal, which is one of the worst and dumbest deals I've ever seen negotiated. A horrible, horrible embarrassment deal. I'm shocked by his policy of open door. I'm shocked by just about everything that he's done and everything that President Obama has done.
Well, my friends, you can find the rest of that interview on my Facebook page, Real Truth Radio. Donald Trump has got some very, very interesting things to say. And we talked before about Heidi Cruz being a managing director at Goldman Sachs, being part of the Council on Foreign Relations, coming out of the Bush crime family. And Donald Trump is the exact opposite of that. He doesn't belong to anyone. He didn't come up through any political machine. He takes money from none of the above. So when it comes to deciding between Trump and Cruz, to me it's become a no-brainer as more and more information has come out, and I see that Ted Cruz and his wife are tied intimately to the machine, to the hum, the establishment. It becomes very clear that if we have another establishment candidate as president, we are cooked. Item from Gallup.com. Dateline: Princeton, New Jersey, as the 2016 primaries continue with neither party's nominee yet decided, Gallup finds sharp differences in the enthusiasm expressed by supporters of the various candidates. Among Republicans and Republican leaners, voters who support Donald Trump are the most enthusiastic by far, with a combined 65% describing themselves as extremely or very enthusiastic. This is nearly twice the level of fervor expressed by Republicans backing Governor John Kasich, and well eclipses the enthusiasm of those backing Senator Cruz. Kasich at 33%, Cruz at 39%. Unquote. My friends, there's more information about the Cruz connection to the Council on Foreign Relations and Goldman Sachs comes out. You can expect to see Cruz's popularity waning. As far as John Kasich, I'd like someone to nudge him a little bit just so we know he's awake. Item from TMZ.com. Sir Elton John forced himself on a former security guard, grabbing the man's genitals on multiple occasions. At least that's what the claim in a lawsuit just filed against Elton. Jeffrey Wenninger says 3 alleged incidents went down in 2014. In the suit, Wenninger says he and Elton were in a car together when Elton put his hand in Wenninger's pants. He says Elton attempted to grab his genitals and put his fingers between Wenninger's butt cheeks. According to the suit, Elton then told him to, quote, get your todger out and say hello to Uncle Elton, unquote. Now, my friends, I don't know what a todger is. That's British talk. I can guess what it is, but I'd rather not. So why did I put this on the air? to show you what happens to people when they get too rich, too successful, too fat and happy, too arrogant. Everything the mind can conceive of is fair game. That apparently, at least allegedly, is what's going on with Sir Elton John. That's what goes on with the elites. I refer back to that book on the Clintons. Read it, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Item from the Free Beacon. The federal government is taking steps to fine schools that don't comply with First Lady Michelle Obama's school lunch rules. The U.S. Department of Agriculture's Food and Nutrition Service issued a proposed rule Monday to codify parts of the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act, which was championed by Mrs. Obama, unquote, and which was a complete disaster. This is what happens when the government gets in the habit of telling people how they should live. Nobody in any of the schools across America, just about nobody, none of the kids wanted the disgusting but healthy meals that Mrs. Obama was pushing on America. Apparently, she doesn't trust American parents to give their kids healthy meals. Item from the Economic Collapse blog. Did you know when you take the number of working-age Americans officially unemployed, 8.2 million, and add that number to the now, okay, I give up. We got a commercial coming in. I'll shut up. We'll take a break. We'll come back, and I'm going to tell you what the Economic Collapse blog is telling us. More real truth ahead, my friends. Stay tuned.
Howdy, folks. Have you ever thought about having...
All right, guys, I'm going to give you in video land a heads up. I posted this item on my Facebook page, Real Truth Radio, End of the American Dream blog, disgusting numbers about Americans who don't have jobs. And I want to give a thank you to Barack Obama and his voters for foisting that upon America and Americans. I'm gone. I'll be back tomorrow. Real Truth will continue. Please share this video. Hasta luego.